stay here for a second round too, if any would like that. First, talk a little bit about the Puget Sound challenge with seismic activity and how the Navy is viewing that, and what will the effect of that be, shuttering those dry docks for a period of time.
Yes, I'll start. We updated our analysis based on computer models that are now available. Weren't available decades ago, looking at seismic, and we determined there were 3 docks at Puget Sound, and what a banger the Trident refit facility that needed some upgrades. So we are doing temporary modifications to all of those. We expect at least 3 of those 4 docks, if not all 4 of those docks, to be back online in the coming months, by no later than June, July timeframe. And while we had to delay one availability going into one of those docks, overall we do not see any long-term mission impact on our ability to keep our submarine force sustained. There will be longer-term improvements to those docks that will be incorporated into the SIOP program overall. But for the near term, another 3 or 4 month impact, and we should be back in good shape, sir. I don't know if you want to jump in there too.
Sir, the only thing I would add is on CNO's UPL is $300 million request for those dry docks.
Okay.
If not to pay for the dry docks, because we want to complete, we can't wait. We're cash flowing that, but it's the backfill of the resources that we're given. From an operational perspective, right now, there is no operational impact other than having to move one submarine maintenance period, which is recoverable.
Another item that was in the news last week was the announcement that the USS Kennedy aircraft carrier would be delivered in FY25 rather than FY24, which made some news. As I've talked to the shipyard and the Secretary of the Navy, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, it's actually not really a delay in the availability of that ship to deploy. There was an earlier delivery date, but then they were going to do a lot of post-delivery work on the ship before it was eligible to deploy. So sliding the delivery date to FY25 just lines the delivery up with what was the expected time for the availability and deployment of the ship. Do I understand that correctly, Secretary?
Yes, sir. So the end date that's critical to us is the ability of that ship to be ready to deploy, and that date is not changing. So as you mentioned, we have a construction period. Typically, a ship will go off and do some workups, and then we'll go into what's called a post-shakedown availability period, and that period was, in this case, set up to be a very long period. The Ford was a year and a half. This for Kennedy was looking about a year-long period. What we're able to do by extending the work at the shipyard during construction is shorten that availability later on to just fix anything we find in the workup period, shorten it down so that the time the ship deploys is the same time in the end.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask one more question, and then I will call on the ranking as I go over to the floor to handle this next amendment. Last year during the posture hearing where we had the SecNav, the Commandant, and the CNO, a lot of us asked a lot of questions about the amphibs and about whether the Navy and Marines were on the same page. And we were told we're definitely on the same page, and you're going to get a study soon that will show we're on the same page. And we got the study in December, so it wasn't exactly soon, and it was, I noted it was very brief, but at least it was almost a page on the same page. It was a few pages, but it did show that everybody was on the same page with respect to a requirement that's been testified to publicly often that we should have 31 amphibs. I think a number of us were surprised when we saw the President's budget this year that there wasn't funding to enable us to get there. In fact, the funding, at least in the current year, or the proposal, would have us dropping the number of amphibs rather than advancing to that 31. And then we understand there is an additional desire for a strategic pause to study yet again what the amphib requirement was. Just speaking for this committee member, everybody made such a good case last year that we're on the same page and the number is 31 that I kind of wonder about, well, what's the continuous review of whether 31 is the right number? Can you explain that to the subcommittee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, we're all in agreement. Secretary, the Commandant, and the CNO, 31 is the requirement. The question is, how do we best get to that requirement? And what I'll do is I'll try to address the new construction side, and I'll let Admiral Khan here talk about the in-service ships, because there's two parts, right? We got to build enough new ones, and we have to have enough existing ones in the inventory to get to that 31.
Just be mindful, I'm now over time, so try to do both of those things promptly.
Okay, so quickly, the two parts of the amphibious, 10 large deck amphibs and 21 of the LPDs. In this budget, one priority was to move the LHA, the large deck amphib, from 2031 to 2027, so that it would be at that 4-year setter. So on the large deck amphib, this budget improves by 4 years the ability to build those on center. So that piece, that's the 10 large decks, I think we got in a good place. The 21 LPDs, we bought one with your help in 23, and the next one's in 25, sir, if you put them on 2-year centers. So there is a period where we can look at a more affordable way potentially to build those. We don't need to build one in 24. We can take some time to see if there's a more affordable way to build those before we buy the 25 ships, sir.
Admiral Khan, do you want to add anything to that?
I'll try to be as quick as I can, so yes. The pressure that's being put on is decision on some of our older LSDs. Original service life on LSD was 35 years. Back in the 90s, we changed it to 40 years. And that was based on two assumptions: normal operations, the time defined as 6-month deployments, and that we would fully fund the maintenance of those ships. War and terror, we operated those ships much longer in 6-month deployments. And we know we didn't put the resources to those ships to be able to stay them.
Okay.
So now we're at a position where we have some hard choices to make. And the 3 LSDs that are listed are, we don't have the confidence, because we're seeing growth work and new work, that those ships will get out of the maintenance phase, be able to get through a workup cycle, through the basic phase, advanced phase, integrated phase, which is a year long, and then go on deployment and stay inside its expected service lives.
I need to cut you off now and turn it to Senator Kramer. Senator King, I'll ask you to manage the air traffic control of this committee until I return once the second vote starts. Thank you.